Sword of the Stars 2 is the sequel to Sword of the Stars 1, a grand strategy 4X game in the tradition of Civilization. This new game is bigger, better, stronger, faster. The Lords of Winter are basically the darkness behind the SOTS universe, and they got the subtitle spot because they're finally back. Many of the races in SOTS have been shaped by them. The Zul were created by them to be a bioweapon. The Marigi were massacred by them. The Lear were enslaved by them. It's time for them to return, and the return is not going to be pleasant. The story in SOTS is a progression. It's not simply a repeat of what we've done before with prettier pictures. So with this arc, we're telling the story of the SOTS universe 100 years in the future from when SOTS 1 finished. Our races are going to have to deal with this new oncoming threat, but they will also not be starting from zero to doing it. They will be starting approximately mid-game, and their behaviors will reflect that. The races that you've been used to, you will see in new ways, and you will see them in more detail. Strategy games have never lent themselves to linear narratives, so it's never been a choice of just simply acting out a cutscene and putting it in. Instead, we had to pursue an arc where the story lent itself to while you played. The ships you've got, the way you fought. SOTS 2 brings even more of that to the table. It tries to infuse all the mechanics with a sense of gameplay and story evolution. We introduce story elements both through admiral characters, scenario descriptions, and with the SOTSpedia unit, which will be a new addition to the game, which will let the player unlock information about the game as they play the game, as well as adding their own notes to their experience. For Sword of the Stars 2, we rebuilt the Mars engine from the ground up to take full advantage of the DirectX 10 era of games. It offers full dynamic lighting, HDR support, as well as the full variety of everything a current cutting-edge graphic card can do without cutting out players from slightly previous generation. SOTS 2 represents the Age of Empires in the SOTS universe. Players will be arranging their planets into provinces, declaring capitals, creating star bases in which to build and support ships and fleets. In general, the player's going to be setting up bigger structures and creating bigger battles, but on the other hand, those battles will have a higher price to them. Losing a world is one thing, losing a provincial capital is another, losing an entire province is devastating to an empire. Diplomacy will also work around those same ideas in the sense of not only will you be making broad treaties, but also very specific border treaties, as in telling other players, we should make a treaty saying no more than one fleet in these two specific provinces, or let's limit the size class of ships down to a dozen of them. SOTS wouldn't be SOTS unless things blew up real good. In SOTS 2, the combination of more detailed combat and the high-end graphics engine means that players will be seeing ships die in all sorts of ways they never imagined before. Instead of simple section death bringing about the destruction of a ship, in SOTS 2 you'll be burning through armor plate and then cutting into the main innards of the ship, causing all sorts of mayhem. Perhaps life support will shut down, or maybe the reactor shielding will go, causing the ship to flare up bright and then tumble silently through space with a dead crew. These different types of ship death will even have implications for gameplay, as how you salvage and what you salvage after a fight depends greatly now on how ships survived and what condition the enemy was in. There are more changes and additions in Sword of the Stars 2 than I can go into at the moment, but the important thing for players of the original game to remember is that this sequel will remain true to the core of the game experience. Players will still research a random tech tree, players will still build ships out of 3 sections and weapon systems to suit their exact tastes. Players will still work with the strengths and weaknesses of very diverse races. And players will still be able to do the exciting things about running an empire without being drowned in minutiae. What we hope the player comes away from SOTS 2 with is a sense that they are in a dynamic universe. Aaron Dembo, our lead writer, has crafted a story and a background that will blow the socks off both new and old players. This story will change the very way Sword of the Stars is played, and it will change their experience in a way that they can't ever suspect at the moment.